The day we laid my husband in the ground, I thought I knew what heartbreak felt like. I stood at that cemetery, watching them lower his casket into the cold earth, and I told myself that this was the worst pain I would ever feel. That nothing could ever hurt more than saying goodbye to Arthur after 43 years of marriage. I was wrong. That pain came later, when I got home, when the house was empty and quiet, and I could still smell him in his favorite chair. When I finally let myself touch his things, his clothes, his shoes, his old coat hanging by the door. I wasn't looking for anything. I was just holding on to whatever pieces of him I had left. His coat was old. He'd had it for years, a brown wool thing with patches on the elbows that I had sewn myself. He loved that coat, said it fit him like a second skin. I brought it to my face, breathing him in one last time. And that's when I felt it, something in the pocket. A small piece of paper, folded tight. I almost didn't open it. Part of me knew even then, even before I read a single word, that this paper would change everything. But I opened it anyway. His handwriting, shaky, because by the end his hands weren't steady anymore. Just 5 words, written in pencil on a scrap of paper torn from a notepad. Don't trust them. Check the safe. I read it once, twice, 3 times, and I smiled. That's the part that haunts me now. The part I don't understand. Why did I smile? Was it relief to hear his voice one more time? Was it my mind protecting me from what those words really meant? Or was it just shock? I stood there in our bedroom, holding his coat, holding his final message, and I smiled like everything was fine. But everything was not fine. I should have been crying. I should have been falling apart. Instead, I felt something cold settle in my chest, something that told me to be quiet, to be careful, to listen to the warning he had left me, because if Arthur wrote those words, Arthur, who never spoke badly of anyone, who always saw the good in people, who loved our son more than his own life, then whatever he was warning me about, it had to be real. And if it was real, I looked at the door. Through the door, I could hear voices. My son, Michael, his wife, Vanessa. They had come back to the house with me after the funeral. They were in the kitchen now, making tea, opening cabinets, moving through my home like they already owned it, like it was already theirs. I folded the note carefully and put it in my pocket, right next to my heart. Then I smoothed down my black dress, took a deep breath, and went to join them. I smiled at Vanessa when she handed me a cup of tea. I nodded when Michael talked about paperwork and legal things I didn't understand. I sat in my own living room, surrounded by my son and his wife, and I played the part of the grieving widow, all while Arthur's words burned a hole in my pocket. Don't trust them. Them. He didn't write don't trust her. He didn't write don't trust Michael. He wrote them together, like they were already one thing, one problem, one danger. I sipped my tea. I smiled. I waited, because there was a safe in this house, a safe I had never known about, and whatever was inside it, Arthur had wanted me to find it after he was gone. He had protected me in life. Now, from beyond the grave, he was trying to protect me still. Hello, my dear friends. If you're watching this, if you're listening to my voice right now, then you've found your way to my little corner of this world. And I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for sitting with me, for giving me your time, for opening your heart to my story. My name is Margaret, but most people who know me, who've known me for years, they call me Maggie. My husband Arthur, he called me Maggie from the very first day we met. Said my name felt softer that way. Said it fit me better. I'm 73 years old now. I have gray hair that I still refuse to dye, even though my daughter-in-law once told me it makes me look older than I am. I have hands that ache in the morning, hands that have cooked thousands of meals, sewn dozens of patches, held a husband and a son, and once upon a time, a grandbaby that never got the chance to be born. I am just an ordinary woman. I never did anything special with my life. I never traveled the world or wrote a book or made a name for myself. I just loved. I just stayed. I just kept showing up, day after day, for the people I cared about. and I thought that was enough. I'm here today because I need to tell you something. Not just my story, but the truth that story taught me. The lesson that came too late, the way most lessons do. I'm here because I believe that if even one person hears what I have to say, if even one person avoids the pain I went through, then Arthur's final gift to me, that little note, those 5 words will mean something. It will mean everything. So, I'm going to ask you, before we go any further, to do something for me. If you feel this story in your heart, if my voice brings you any comfort or any understanding, please take a moment to hit that like button. It lets me know you're here. It lets me know I'm not talking to an empty room. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. Click that little button, the one that says subscribe, and then tap the bell icon right next to it. That way, you'll never miss another story. That way, when I come back to share more of what I've learned, you'll be right here waiting, and I'll be right here talking to you, just like we're old friends sitting in a quiet kitchen with a pot of tea between us. Because that's what I want this to feel like. Not a performance, not a show, just one human being, speaking from the heart to another. I know life is hard. I know we all carry burdens that no one else can see. I know what it's like to smile when you're falling apart inside, to nod when you want to scream, to say I'm fine when fine is the last thing you are. I've been there. I'm still there some days, but I've also learned that there is strength in telling the truth. There is healing in speaking the words we've held inside for too long. And there is connection, real, deep, human connection in sitting with someone else's story and recognizing a piece of your own. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Now, let me tell you about Arthur. Let me tell you about the men I loved, the life we built, and the note that changed everything. Let me tell you what I found in that safe. Arthur, just saying his name, even now, even after everything, it still makes my heart hurt. Not in that sharp, painful way it did right after he left. More like a dull ache, the kind you learn to carry, the kind that becomes part of you. I met him in the spring of 1978. I was 25 years old, working at a small diner on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, just a place where truckers stopped for coffee and old men came for eggs and gossip. I waited tables 6 days a week, $12 an hour plus tips, and I thought that was my life. I thought that was all I would ever be. Then Arthur walked in. He wasn't handsome the way men are handsome in movies. He wasn't tall or flashy or smooth. He was just solid, quiet. He sat in the corner booth, the one by the window, and ordered black coffee and toast. That's it, just coffee and toast. And when I brought it to him, he looked up at me with these brown eyes, warm eyes, kind eyes, and he said, "Thank you, miss. I appreciate you." Something about those words. Something about the way he said them. Like he really meant it. Like he really saw me. He came back the next day. Same booth, same coffee and toast. Same quiet "thank you, miss" when I set it down. And the next day. And the next. After 2 weeks, I finally sat down across from him on my break and said, "You know, we have other things on the menu. Pie, sandwiches, real food." He smiled. That smile. The one that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "I know," he said, "but your coffee's good, and I like watching you work." That was Arthur. Never in a hurry. Never trying to impress. Just present. Just there. He asked me out 3 times before I finally said yes. 3 times. I kept making excuses. I was tired. I was busy. I had to work. But he didn't push. He didn't get angry. He just nodded and said, "Maybe another time then." And the next week, he'd ask again. When I finally agreed to dinner, he took me to a little Italian place downtown. Not fancy, but nice. Tablecloth nice. He held my chair out for me. He'd already called ahead to ask what my favorite food was, so there was lasagna waiting. My lasagna. He'd found out from one of the other waitresses. I asked him later why he went to all that trouble. He looked at me like the answer was obvious. "Because you're worth trouble, Maggie. You're worth everything." We were married 6 months later. Small ceremony. Just a judge and a few friends. I wore a white dress I'd found at a second-hand shop and altered myself. He wore a suit he'd borrowed from his brother. We said our vows in front of a dozen people, and I meant every word, till death do us part. 43 years. 43 years of waking up next to him. 43 years of his coffee in the morning, his hand on my back, his voice saying my name like it was something precious. 43 years of ordinary days, laundry and groceries, and quiet evenings on the porch that added up to something extraordinary. He was a carpenter, worked with his hands, built cabinets and bookshelves, and once, for our 10th anniversary, a rocking chair that I still sit in every night. He'd come home covered in sawdust, smelling like wood and hard work, and I'd have dinner waiting. Meatloaf on Mondays, pot roast on Sundays, leftovers in between. We didn't have much money, but we had enough. Enough for a small house with a big yard. Enough for a used car that lasted 15 years. Enough to put a little away each month, just in case. And we had each other. That was the thing about Arthur. He made me feel like I was enough. Not because he said it. Arthur wasn't big on words, but because of the way he lived. The way he'd bring me tea without me asking. The way he'd hold my hand during movies. The way he'd look at me across a room, across a table, across a lifetime, like I was still the girl in the diner bringing him coffee. When our son Michael was born, I saw Arthur cry for the first time. Just a few tears, quiet ones, while he held that tiny baby in his big, rough hands. We made this, he whispered to me. We made this beautiful boy. Michael was everything to him. Everything. Arthur worked double shifts to buy him good shoes. Woke up early on Saturdays to take him fishing. Sat up all night when Michael had a fever, just watching him breathe. He wasn't a perfect father, who is, but he was a present one, a loving one, a safe one. In his final years, Arthur slowed down. His back gave him trouble. His hands didn't work the way they used to. He'd sit in that rocking chair more often, watching the birds, watching the world go by. Sometimes I'd catch him just looking at me, with this expression I couldn't quite read. "What are you thinking?" I'd ask, and he'd smile, that crinkly-eyed smile, and say, "Just grateful, Maggie, just grateful." The week before he died, he was different, quieter than usual, restless. I'd find him standing at windows, staring out into the dark. Once I woke up at a.m. and he wasn't in bed. I found him in the kitchen, sitting at the table, holding a cup of cold coffee. "Can sleep?" I asked. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, "Maggie, you know I love you, right? You know that." "I know, Arthur. And you know I'd never do anything to hurt you." "I know that too." He nodded, stood up, kissed my forehead. "Good, that's good." That was the last real conversation we had. 3 days later, he was gone. Heart attack. Fast. Peaceful. They told me. He didn't suffer. But I did. I suffered. I'm still suffering. Because here's the thing about losing someone after 43 years. It's not just losing them. It's losing every version of yourself that existed with them. It's losing the inside jokes, the shared memories, the language only the two of you spoke. It's waking up in a bed that's too big, reaching for a hand that isn't there, cooking meatloaf for one. I thought that was the hardest part. I didn't know about the note yet. I didn't know about the safe. I didn't know that my Arthur, my quiet, gentle Arthur, had been carrying a secret in his final days. A secret he couldn't tell me face to face. A secret he could only leave behind, written in pencil on a scrap of paper, hidden in the pocket of an old brown coat. Don't trust them. Check the safe. Them. Who was them? And what was in that safe? Michael was our world. I know every parent says that. I know it's almost a cliché. But when you have a child after trying for years, after thinking maybe it wasn't meant to be, after almost giving up hope, that child becomes something more than just a child. He becomes a miracle, a gift you never stop being grateful for. We had Michael late. I was 33 when he was born. Arthur was 37. By then, most of our friends already had teenagers, but we didn't mind. We waited, and we prayed. And when that baby finally came screaming and red-faced and perfect, we held him like he was made of glass. Arthur used to say that Michael had his lungs in my heart. Said it like a joke, but I knew what he meant. Michael had Arthur's stubbornness, his quiet way of observing the world. But he had my softness too, my sensitivity, my need to be loved. He was a sweet boy, shy, but sweet. In elementary school, he'd come home and tell me about his day in tiny fragments, like he was giving me pieces of a puzzle. Sarah shared her crayons. Tommy fell and I helped him up. Mrs. Patterson said I'm a good listener. I'd sit on the edge of his bed at night and he'd hold my hand, just hold it, until he fell asleep. Those were the moments I cherished most. The quiet ones. The ones where nothing happened except love. Arthur was a wonderful father, patient in a way he wasn't with anyone else. He'd spend hours teaching Michael how to hold a hammer, how to measure wood, how to sand until the surface was smooth as silk. They built a birdhouse together when Michael was 7. It was crooked, lopsided. The birds never used it, but Arthur kept it in his workshop for 35 years. He made that. He'd say if anyone asked about it, my boy made that. When Michael was 12, he started pulling away. Not in a bad way, just normal. He wanted to spend more time with friends. He didn't want me walking him to the bus stop anymore. He'd shrug when I tried to hug him, like my love was something to endure instead of enjoy. I'd hurt. Of course it hurt, but Arthur would put his hand on my shoulder and say, "It's just his age, Maggie. He'll come back. They always come back." And he did. In high school, Michael came back. Not all the way, maybe no child ever comes all the way back to their parents, but enough. Enough that he'd sit with me at the kitchen table after school and tell me about his day. Enough that he'd let Arthur teach him to drive, even though they both got frustrated and yelled sometimes. Enough that when he left for college, I cried for 3 days, but I also felt proud. We had raised someone ready to leave. That was the goal, wasn't it? He met Vanessa in his 3rd year of university. He called us on a Tuesday night, which was unusual. Michael wasn't much for phone calls. He texted mostly, quick updates that felt more like obligations than conversations. But that night, he called, and I could hear something in his voice. Something bright. "Mom," he said, "I met someone." I smiled into the phone. "That's wonderful, honey. Tell me about her." And he did. He talked for 45 minutes, which was longer than all our conversations in the previous month combined. He told me about her dark hair and her smart jokes and the way she laughed. He told me she was studying business, that she came from a good family, that she made him feel like he mattered. "She's special, Mom. Really special." I was happy for him. Of course I was. Any mother wants her child to find love. Any mother wants to see that light in her son's eyes. But part of me, a small part, a part I didn't admit to anyone, felt a twinge of something else. Something that looked like fear but felt like knowing. Knowing that when a son falls in love, he leaves his mother a little bit. Not on purpose. Not with cruelty. Just leaves. And I was right. We met Vanessa for the first time at Christmas that year. She drove up with Michael in his old Honda, a 7-hour trip from the city to our little town. I spent all day cleaning, cooking, making sure everything was perfect. Arthur told me to relax, that she wouldn't care about the curtains or the dust on the shelves. But I couldn't relax. This was my son's girlfriend. This mattered. When they pulled into the driveway, I watched from the window. Michael got out first, stretching like he'd been sitting too long. Then the passenger door opened, and Vanessa stepped out. She was beautiful. I'll give her that. Tall and slim, with glossy dark hair and perfect skin. She wore a white coat that probably cost more than my winter wardrobe. She looked around at our small house, our modest yard, our quiet street, and her face didn't change. No expression at all. Just blank. Then she saw me in the window, and her face changed. She smiled. A big smile. A warm smile. She waved. I waved back. And I told myself the blankness was just surprise. Just adjustment. Just a normal pause before someone decides how to feel. That first visit was fine. Good even. Vanessa was polite. She helped with dishes. She asked questions about our lives, our hobbies, our history. She laughed at Arthur's jokes, the same old jokes I'd heard 1,000 times, and told me my cooking was the best she'd ever had. "She's lovely," Arthur said that night, after they'd gone to bed. "Michael did good." I nodded. "She is lovely. But I noticed things, small things. The way Vanessa's smile didn't quite reach her eyes sometimes. The way she looked around our home like she was cataloging everything, measuring it against some invisible standard. The way she called Michael babe in a voice that sounded practiced, rehearsed, like she'd learned it from a movie. I didn't say anything. What was there to say? She was young. She was nervous. She was trying to impress her boyfriend's parents. All of that was normal. They got married 2 years later. The wedding was beautiful. Vanessa planned everything. She was very clear that she wanted to handle it herself. Her parents paid for most of it, which was good because we couldn't have afforded that kind of affair. Big venue, 5-course meal, a band instead of a DJ, flowers everywhere, the kind that cost more than my first car. I wore a navy blue dress that Vanessa picked out. She'd sent me a photo and said, "This one, Mom, this one will be perfect." And I bought it, even though it was more than I wanted to spend, because I wanted to make her happy. I wanted to start this new chapter right. At the reception, Arthur gave a toast. He kept it short. Arthur was never comfortable with public speaking, but what he said stayed with me. "My son," he said, holding up his glass. "My son found someone to love. That's all I ever wanted for him. That's all any parent wants. So here's to Michael and Vanessa. Here's to love." Everyone clapped. Vanessa's mother cried. Michael kissed his bride, and Arthur sat down next to me and took my hand under the table, squeezed it once. That was all. After the wedding, things changed. Slowly at first, then faster. Michael didn't call as much. When he did, the conversations were shorter. He was busy with work, with the new house, with Vanessa's family events. I understood. I did. That's how it's supposed to be. You grow up. You leave. You build your own life. But I missed him. I miss my boy. They visited for holidays. Christmas and Thanksgiving mostly. Sometimes Easter. The visits were always pleasant. Always polite. Vanessa would compliment my cooking, ask about my garden, tell me stories about her job. On the surface, everything was fine. Under the surface, there were moments. Small moments that I pushed away because I didn't want to see them. Like the time I offered to watch their apartment while they went on vacation. Just to water the plants, I said. Make sure everything's okay. Vanessa's face flickered just for a second with something that looked like panic. Then she smiled and said, "Oh, that's so sweet, Mom. But we already arranged for a neighbor to do it. Thank you, though." Like the time Michael mentioned, offhand, that Vanessa handled all their finances now. "She's so good with numbers," he said. "I just sign where she tells me." Arthur's fork stopped halfway to his mouth, just for a moment. Then he kept eating, like the time we visited their new house, a big house, much bigger than they needed, and Vanessa gave us a tour. She showed us the guest rooms, the home office, the fancy kitchen. But when I asked to see their bedroom, just to see how they decorated it, she laughed and said, "Oh, that room's a mess. Maybe next time." Little things, tiny things, things that probably meant nothing, but Arthur noticed them too. I know he did, because in his final months, he started asking questions, innocent questions, the kind any father might ask. "How's work treating Michael? Is Vanessa happy with the new house? Do they seem okay to you, Maggie? Really okay?" I'd say yes. I'd say everything was fine, because I believed it, because I wanted to believe it, because the alternative, that something was wrong, that my son was in trouble, that my daughter-in-law was not who she seemed, that alternative was too painful to consider. So I didn't consider it. I just kept cooking holiday dinners. I just kept smiling in family photos. I just kept being Michael's mother, Vanessa's mother-in-law, the grandmother to grandchildren that never came. And Arthur kept his worries to himself until he couldn't anymore, until he wrote that note, until he hid it in his coat pocket, where I would find it only after he was gone. Don't trust them. Them. My son and his wife. My family. Looking back now, I see things I didn't see then. That's the cruel thing about hindsight. It shows you everything you missed, everything you ignored, everything you explained away because the truth was too heavy to carry. The cracks were there. Long before Arthur got sick, long before that note, they were there. spreading slowly, quietly, like thin lines in old porcelain. You don't notice them at first. Then one day you hold the cup up to the light and realize it's been broken for years. I think the first crack came about a year after the wedding. Michael and Vanessa had come for Sunday dinner. Pot roast, my specialty. Arthur carved the meat while I brought out the vegetables. Everything felt normal, comfortable, the way family should feel. Then Vanessa said, "Mom, have you ever thought about selling this house?" I stopped mid-reach for the gravy boat. Selling? Why would we sell? She shrugged, that practiced shrug of hers. It's just so big for two people, and the upkeep must be exhausting. Michael and I were thinking if you ever wanted to downsize, move somewhere easier, we could help you find something. Maybe closer to the city, closer to us. I looked at Arthur. He was still carving, but his hand had slowed. He didn't look up. "We like it here," I said. "We've been here 40 years. This is our home." "Of course," Vanessa said quickly. "Of course it is. Just a thought. No pressure." Michael stayed quiet. He was pushing food around his plate, not eating. He didn't look at me either. After they left, Arthur and I washed dishes in silence. Then he said, "She's got ideas, that one." "What kind of ideas?" He shook his head, dried a plate, put it away. "I don't know yet, but she's got them." I should have asked more. I should have pushed, but I was tired, and it was late, and it was easier to pretend that nothing had happened. So I pretended. The next crack came when Arthur got sick. It wasn't sudden. Nothing with Arthur was ever sudden. It was slow, gradual, like the changing of seasons. First his back, then his knees, then a cough that wouldn't go away, then the doctor's appointment, then the tests, then the word we never wanted to hear. Cancer. Not the kind they can fix, not the kind they can slow down much, the kind that just takes. I held his hand when the doctor told us. Arthur's face didn't change. He just nodded, asked a few questions about timelines and options, and said, "Thank you, doctor. We appreciate you telling us." On the way home, he drove. I sat in the passenger seat and cried. He reached over and put his hand on my knee, squeezed once. "We'll be okay, Maggie," he said. "We've been through everything else. We'll get through this too." But we wouldn't. We both knew it. We just didn't say it out loud. We told Michael that weekend. He came alone. Vanessa had something else, some event she couldn't miss. We sat in the living room, the three of us, and Arthur told our son that he was dying. Michael cried. Not loudly, not dramatically, just tears streaming down his face while he stared at his father. "Dad," he kept saying. "Dad, Dad." Arthur hugged him, held him tight. "It's okay, son. It's okay. I've had a good life, a really good life." Vanessa came the next day. She brought flowers and a casserole and an expression I couldn't read. She hugged Arthur carefully, like she was afraid of hurting him, and said all the right things. "We'll help however we can. Let us know what you need. We're here for you." But I noticed she didn't cry. Not once. Not then. Not later. Not at the funeral. I told myself some people grieve differently. I told myself she was being strong for Michael. I told myself 100 lies because the truth that she didn't really care, that Arthur was just an obstacle to her, was too ugly to accept. In Arthur's final months, the cracks got wider. Vanessa started coming to every doctor's appointment. At first I was grateful. Another pair of ears, another person to take notes, another voice to ask questions. But then I noticed how she positioned herself, always between me and the doctor, always asking questions I hadn't thought of, always taking charge. "I'll handle the insurance paperwork, Mom. I'll talk to the specialist, Mom. I'll coordinate with the hospice team, Mom." She called me Mom. It should have felt warm. It should have felt like family. But somehow, it started to feel like something else. Like she was practicing, like she was preparing. Arthur noticed too. I could tell by the way he watched her. Not with anger, Arthur was never angry, but with something like curiosity. Like he was studying her, figuring her out. One night, when she'd gone to the pharmacy to pick up his medication, he said to me, "She's very involved. Is that bad?" He was quiet for a moment. Then, "I don't know yet, but she's very, very involved." I sat on the edge of his bed and took his hand. "Arthur, What are you worried about? He looked at me, really looked at me. For a long moment, I thought he was going to tell me something. Something important. Something he'd been holding on to. Then the front door opened. Vanessa was back. Arthur's face closed. Just like that. He smiled at her when she walked in, thanked her for the medicine, asked about her drive. But something had passed between us in that moment. Something unspoken. He wanted to tell me something, and he couldn't. The week before he died, things got strange. Arthur had always been a private man, but in those final days, he became obsessed with his things. His workshop, his tools, his old papers. He'd have me help him out of bed, and he'd shuffle to the garage, and he'd just look at everything, touch everything, organize. What are you doing, honey? I asked once. Just making sure, he said. Just making sure everything's in order. I thought he meant for me, for after. I thought he was making it easier for me to sort through his things, to decide what to keep and what to give away. I didn't know he was hiding something. I didn't know he was protecting me. The night before he died, he was restless, in and out of sleep. I stayed beside him, holding his hand, whispering that I loved him. Sometimes he'd squeeze my hand back. Sometimes he'd open his eyes and look at me with so much love it broke my heart. Around a.m., he spoke, clear as day, like he wasn't sick at all. Maggie, I'm here, Arthur. The coat. My old coat. The brown one. Yes? Don't throw it away, okay? Keep it. For a while, okay, Arthur? I'll keep it. He nodded, closed his eyes, squeezed my hand one last time. Those were the last words he ever said to me. Not I love you, not goodbye. Just instructions about an old coat. I didn't understand then. I understand now. He died the next evening. Peaceful, like they said. I was holding his hand. One moment he was breathing, and the next he wasn't. No struggle, no pain, just gone. I sat there for a long time after, holding his hand even though it was cooling, staring at his face even though he wasn't there anymore. The nurses came and went. Someone called Michael. Someone brought me water. I don't remember any of it. All I remember is thinking, 43 years, 43 years, and now I'm alone. The funeral was 3 days later. Vanessa planned it. She told me it would be too much for me, that I should rest, that she would handle everything. I was too numb to argue, too empty to fight, so I let her. She chose the flowers. She chose the music. She chose the readings. She even chose what I should wear, a black dress I'd never seen before, which she'd bought just in case. You look beautiful, Mom, she said at the cemetery. Arthur would be proud. I looked at her, standing there in her perfect black dress, her perfect hair, her perfect expression of sorrow. And for just a moment, just a flicker, I saw something else underneath, something that looked like satisfaction. Then it was gone, and I told myself I imagined it. After the burial, people came to the house. Friends, neighbors, people from Arthur's work. They brought food and flowers and memories. I moved through the rooms like a ghost, accepting hugs, thanking people, smiling when I was supposed to smile. Vanessa played the hostess, directing traffic, refilling plates, making sure everyone had enough to eat. She was so good at it, so natural, like she'd been waiting for this moment. Michael stayed by my side most of the day, quiet, holding my hand the way I used to hold his when he was little. Every so often he'd look at me and his eyes would fill with tears and he'd say, "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. It's okay, baby." I'd tell him, "We'll be okay." I didn't know then how wrong I was. When the last guest finally left, when the house was quiet again, Michael and Vanessa stayed. They sat in the living room while I made tea. I could hear them whispering, but not what they were saying. When I came back with the tray, they stopped. "We should talk about the future," Vanessa said. "About what comes next." I nodded, sat down, held my tea even though I didn't want it. "There's paperwork," she said. "Legal things. We can help you with all of that. And we've been thinking, Vanessa." Michael's voice, quiet. "Not tonight. She's tired." She looked at him. That look, the one I'd seen before but never named. Controlled, careful, a little bit cold. "Of course," she said. "Of course." Another time. They left an hour later. I stood, at the door and watched her taillights disappear down the street. Then I went inside, locked the door, and stood in the silence. Arthur's chair, Arthur's slippers, Arthur's coat, hanging by the door. I walked over to it, slowly, like something was pulling me. I reached out and touched a sleeve. Old wool, worn, soft by years of wear. I brought it to my face and breathed in. He was still there, just a little, just enough. And then I felt it. Something in the pocket. A small piece of paper folded tight. I almost didn't open it. Part of me knew even then, even before I read a single word, that this paper would change everything. But I opened it anyway. His handwriting, shaky, because by the end his hands weren't steady anymore. Just 5 words, written in pencil on a scrap of paper torn from a notepad. Don't trust them. Check the safe. I read it once, twice, 3 times. And I smiled. Not because I was happy, not because I understood, but because for one brief moment, I heard his voice again. I felt him again, like he was right there, whispering in my ear, reaching across the grave to touch me one last time. Then the smile faded, because I realized what those words meant. He was warning me. From beyond the grave, my Arthur was warning me. And if he was warning me, if he went to all that trouble to leave a secret message in a coat pocket, then whatever he was warning me about, it had to be real. It had to be dangerous. It had to be them. I folded the note carefully and put it in my own pocket, right next to my heart. Then I smoothed down my black dress, took a deep breath, and went to join them in the kitchen. I smiled at Vanessa when she handed me a cup of tea. I nodded when Michael talked about paperwork and legal things I didn't understand. I sat in my own living room, surrounded by my son and his wife, and I played the part of the grieving widow, all while Arthur's words burned a hole in my pocket. Don't trust them. Them. My family. The morning of the funeral, I woke up and for just a few seconds, I forgot. That's the cruelest trick grief plays on you. Those moments right after waking, when your mind hasn't caught up yet, when you still think everything is normal, when you reach across the bed for a hand that isn't there. I reached and my hand found empty sheets, cold sheets, sheets that hadn't been touched all night. And then I remembered, Arthur was gone. I lay there for a long time, staring at the ceiling. The same ceiling we'd looked at together for 43 years. The same crack in the plaster near the light fixture. The same water stain from the leak we'd fixed in 1995. All the same. Everything the same except him. Except everything. The funeral was at 11. Vanessa had texted me the details the night before, the time, the address, what time the car would pick me up. She'd even included a little note. Rest today, Mom. We've got everything covered. We've got everything covered. I should have felt grateful. Instead, I felt something else. Something I couldn't name. A tightness in my chest that wasn't just grief. I got up anyway, showered, stood in the hot water until it ran cold, stared at myself in the mirror, this old woman with gray hair and tired eyes and a face that looked like a stranger's. Who was I without Arthur? I'd been Maggie, Arthur's wife, for so long. What was left now? The dress Vanessa bought was hanging on the back of the bathroom door. Black, simple, elegant, more expensive than anything I'd ever owned. I touched the fabric and wondered how she knew my size. When had she measured me? When had she planned this? Stop it. I told myself. She's being helpful. She's being kind. I put on the dress. The car arrived at 10:30. A black sedan with a driver in a black suit. He held the door for me, called me. Ma'am, asked if I was comfortable. I nodded and stared out the window as my home got smaller and smaller in the distance. The church was full. I didn't expect that. Arthur was a quiet man. A private man. He didn't have many friends, but the pews were packed. People from his work, neighbors, old friends I hadn't seen in years. They all turned to look at me when I walked in, and their faces were full of pity. I hated that. The pity. I wanted to tell them I was fine, that I was strong, that I could do this. But I wasn't fine, and I wasn't strong, and I didn't know if I could do this at all. Michael was waiting at the front. He hugged me tight. Tighter than he'd hugged me in years. I felt him shaking. I can't believe he's gone, Mom, he whispered. I can't believe it. I held him. My boy, my son. I know, baby. I know. Vanessa stood beside him, perfect in her black dress. She touched my arm lightly, like she was afraid of getting too close. We're here for you, Mom. Whatever you need. The service was beautiful. I'll give her that. The flowers were perfect white lilies, Arthur's favorite. The music was perfect, his favorite hymns, played softly on the organ. The readings were perfect verses he'd loved, spoken by a priest who'd never met him but read them like he had. But as I sat there, listening to people talk about my husband, I felt strange, disconnected, like I was watching someone else's funeral. Like the Arthur they described, the kind man, the hard worker, the devoted father, was a stranger to me. No, that's not right. They described him perfectly. They just didn't know the rest. They didn't know the way he hummed while he worked, the way he'd sneak extra marshmallows into my hot chocolate, the way he'd hold me on stormy nights because I was scared of thunder even though I was a grown woman, the way he'd look at me across a room full of people and smile like we shared a secret. Those things were just ours. They belonged to no one else. At the cemetery, I stood beside the grave and watched them lower his casket into the ground. The sound of dirt hitting wood, the priest's voice saying words I couldn't hear, Michael's hand in mine squeezing too tight. Vanessa stood on his other side. She wasn't crying. Her face was composed, peaceful, appropriate. She looked like a woman at a funeral. She looked like she was playing a part. And then I saw it. For just a moment, just a flicker, she looked at Michael, and there was something in her eyes. Not grief, not sadness, something else. Something that looked like impatience. Then it was gone, and I told myself I imagined it. After the burial, people gathered at the church hall for food and conversation. Vanessa had arranged that too. Sandwiches and coffee and little cakes. Tables with white tablecloths. Photos of Arthur arranged on an easel, photos I'd never seen before, from albums I didn't know she had access to. When had she taken those? When had she gone through our things? Michael brought me a plate of food I didn't eat. People came up to me, one after another, to share their memories. He was such a good man. He'll be missed. If you need anything at all. I smiled. I nodded. I said thank you. And all the while, I felt Vanessa watching me. Every time I looked up, there she was, across the room, talking to someone, but her eyes on me, watching, waiting, like she was measuring something. After 2 hours, Michael came and put his hand on my shoulder. Mom, you look tired. Let's get you home. I wanted to argue. I wanted to stay, but he was right. I was tired, bone tired, soul tired. Vanessa appeared beside him. We'll follow you in our car. Make sure you're settled. I wanted to say no, I wanted to be alone, but I didn't know how to say it without sounding ungrateful, so I nodded. The drive home was quiet. I sat in the back of the sedan and watched the world go by, the same streets Arthur and I had driven 1,000 times. The grocery store where we shopped every Saturday. The park where we used to walk on summer evenings. The little diner where we met. I closed my eyes and saw him there. Young Arthur, sitting in that corner booth, ordering coffee and toast, looking up at me with those warm brown eyes. Thank you, miss. I appreciate you. I started crying then, quietly, so the driver wouldn't hear. Tears running down my face while I pretended to be asleep. At home, Michael helped me inside. Vanessa followed with a bag of leftovers from the reception. She went straight to the kitchen and started putting things away, opening my cabinets, moving my dishes, rearranging my food. I can do that, I said. Nonsense, Mom. You rest. Let us take care of you. I sat in Arthur's chair. His chair, the one he'd sat in every night for 40 years. I could still feel him there, still smell him, still hear his voice. Michael sat on the couch across from me. He looked lost, like a little boy who didn't know what to do. Mom, he said, we should talk about what comes next. Vanessa came in from the kitchen and stood behind him, her hand on his shoulder, her eyes on me. There's no rush, she said, but eventually, we'll need to handle the estate, the paperwork, the legal things. I nodded. I know, and we've been thinking, she continued. This house is a lot for one person. The maintenance, the yard work, the taxes. It might make sense to. She trailed off. Michael looked at the floor. To what? I asked. To sell, she said. Eventually, when you're ready, you could move closer to us. Be near family. We could help you find something smaller, easier to manage. I looked at Michael. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Your father loved this house, I said quietly. We built this house together, raised you here. I know, Mom. His voice was soft. I know. We're thinking about what's best for you, Vanessa nodded. That's all. What's best for you? I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell them that what's best for me is sitting in my own home, surrounded by my own things, my own memories. I wanted to tell them to leave, to give me space, to let me grieve in my own way. But I didn't. I just nodded, smiled, said, we'll talk about it later, when I'm ready. Vanessa's eyes flickered again. That same look from the cemetery. Impatience. Just for a second. Then she smiled. Of course, Mom. Whenever you're ready. They stayed another hour, making tea, making small talk, making plans I wasn't part of. I sat in Arthur's chair and watched them, and I felt like a stranger in my own home. When they finally left, I stood at the door and watched their car pull away. Then I locked the door, something I never used to do during the day, and leaned against it. The house was silent, completely silent. No Arthur humming in the workshop, no Arthur shuffling in his slippers, no Arthur calling Maggie. Where'd you put my glasses? Just silence. I walked through the room slowly, touching things. His tools in the garage, his books on the shelf, his coffee cup still in the sink, unwashed because I couldn't bear to wash it. Then I came to the front hall, and I saw his coat. The brown wool coat, the one with patches on the elbows, hanging on the hook where he always left it. I don't know why I touched it. Something pulled me, something I can't explain. I reached into the pocket, and I felt the paper. Small, folded, hidden. I pulled it out and unfolded it with shaking hands. His handwriting, shaky, pencil on scrap paper. 5 words. Don't trust them. Check the safe. I read it once, twice, 3 times. And I smiled. Not because I was happy, because I heard his voice. Because for one moment, he was here again, reaching across death to warn me, to protect me, to save me. Then, the smile faded, because I realized what those words meant. He knew something he couldn't tell me while he was alive, something he had to hide, to leave behind, to trust me to find after he was gone. Them. Who was them? And what was in that safe? I folded the note carefully, put it in my own pocket, right next to my heart. Then I went to join my son and his wife in the kitchen. I smiled at Vanessa when she handed me tea. I nodded when Michael talked about paperwork. I played the part, but underneath the smile, underneath the nod, I was already changing. Arthur had given me a mission, and I was going to complete it. After Michael and Vanessa left that night, I sat alone in the living room for a long time. The house was so quiet I could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen, the clock ticking on the wall, my own heartbeat, slow and steady, like it was waiting for something. I reached into my pocket and touched a note. Just touched it, like making sure it was real. Don't trust them. Check the safe. But what safe? We didn't have a safe. Arthur and I had never owned a safe. We kept our important papers in a showbox in the closet: birth certificates, marriage license, the deed to the house. That was it. That was all we had. I got up and walked to the bedroom, opened the closet, pulled down the showbox. Everything was there, just like always. No safe. I checked under the bed, behind the dresser, in the back of the kitchen cabinets. Nothing. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe he meant something else. Maybe safe meant something different: a place, a feeling, a memory. Arthur sometimes used words in his own way. Maybe I was reading it too literally, but no, Arthur was a practical man. If he wrote safe, he meant a safe, a box, a container, something with a lock. I went to his workshop. The workshop was Arthur's place, his sanctuary. I rarely went in there. It was his space, his mess, his organized chaos. But now I stood in the doorway, looking at his tools hanging on the wall, his workbench covered in sawdust, his old radio still plugged in. Where would he hide a safe? I started opening drawers, old drawers full of screws and nails and things I couldn't name. Nothing. I looked behind shelves, under piles of wood, in the cabinet where he kept his paints and stains. Nothing. I was about to give up when I noticed something. The floor dot in the corner, near his workbench, there was a small rug, an old rug worn thin, the kind you'd put down to catch sawdust. I'd seen it 1,000 times, never thought about it, but now I noticed that the rug wasn't quite flat. There was a bump underneath, a small bump barely visible, but there. I walked over, moved the rug with my foot, and there it was, a small safe, built into the floor. The kind you might hide under a rug or a piece of furniture. I'd never seen it before, never knew it existed. I knelt down beside it, ran my fingers over the cold metal, a combination lock, 6 numbers. What was the combination? I tried his birthday. Nothing. Our anniversary. Nothing. Michael's birthday. Nothing. I sat back on my heels and stared at the safe. Arthur had hidden this. He'd built it into the floor, covered it with a rug, never told me about it. Why? And then I remembered something. Years ago, maybe 15 years, maybe more, I'd woken up in the middle of the night and Arthur wasn't in bed. I found him out here in the workshop doing something on the floor. When I asked what he was doing, he said he'd dropped a screw and was looking for it. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He was building this safe right under my nose, and I never knew. I tried more combinations. Michael's birth year, our wedding date, the day we met. Nothing worked. I sat there for a long time thinking. Arthur wouldn't choose a random number. He'd choose something meaningful, something only he would know, something maybe only I would know. And then it came to me. The date we bought this house, the day we became homeowners, the day we started our life together in this place. I tried it. Click. The safe opened. Inside, there were 3 things: a stack of papers, a thick envelope, and a letter folded neatly with my name on it. Maggie. His handwriting. My name. I pulled out the letter first. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely open it. But I did. I sat there on the floor of his workshop in the middle of the night, and I read the last words my husband ever wrote to me. My dearest Maggie, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I'm sorry I couldn't tell you these things face to face. I wanted to. I tried to, but every time I tried, something stopped me. Fear, maybe, or love, or the hope that I was wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I pray I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. There are things you need to know about our son, about Vanessa, about what they've been doing. I started noticing things about a year ago. Small things at first. Vanessa asking too many questions about our finances. Michael seeming uncomfortable when I visited. Changes in their behavior that I couldn't explain. So I started watching. I started paying attention. And I started keeping records. The papers in this safe are copies. Originals are with my lawyer, Mr. Peterson. You remember him? He helped us with the will a few years ago. I trusted him with the originals because I didn't know what might happen to these copies. I didn't know who might find them. Maggie. They've been planning something. Vanessa mostly. But Michael is involved too. I don't think he knows the full extent of it. I think she's been manipulating him, using him, but he's involved. And that's the part that breaks my heart. They've been taking money, small amounts at first, so small we wouldn't notice, from our savings account, from the retirement fund. They forged our signatures. They used our names. They've been doing it for over a year. I found out 2 months ago when I went to the bank to check on something and the teller mentioned a withdrawal I didn't make. I didn't say anything to them. I didn't say anything to you. I just started gathering evidence. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. I'm sorry I kept this from you. But I was scared. Maggie. Scared of what would happen to our family. Scared of what Michael had become. Scared of what Vanessa would do if she knew I was onto them. And then I got sick. And I realized I might not have time to fix this. So I did what I could. I gathered what I could. And I left it here. In this safe. With this letter. Don't confront them alone. Don't let them know you know. Go to Mr. Peterson first. He has the full story. He has the proof. He'll help you. I love you, Maggie. I loved you from the moment I saw you in that diner. I loved you every day for 43 years. And I love you still, even from wherever I am now. Be strong, be careful, and don't trust them. Your Arthur read the letter 3 times. The first time, I didn't understand it. The words went in, but they didn't make sense. Taking money, forged signatures? My son? My Michael? The second time I understood, but I didn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. Not my boy. Not the little boy who held my hand at night. Not the teenager who let me teach him to drive. Not the man who cried at his father's funeral. The third time I believed it, and something inside me broke. I sat on that workshop floor for hours, crying, rocking back and forth, holding Arthur's letter to my chest like it was him, like I could hold on to him and never let go. When the sun started coming up, I finally stopped, crying. My eyes were swollen, my head ached, my heart felt like it had been ripped out and put back in wrong. But I was calm. I put Arthur's letter in my pocket, next to the note. Then I looked at the other things in the safe. The stack of papers was bank statements. Our bank statements, but with notes in Arthur's handwriting. Small withdrawals circled, dates highlighted, patterns emerging, thousands of dollars, gone over more than a year. So small we never noticed, so careful we never suspected. The thick envelope contained something else. Photographs, copies of checks, documents with our signatures that looked like ours but weren't quite right. If you knew what to look for, you could see the differences. The way the M in my name was too sharp. The way Arthur's looped where it shouldn't. I studied everything. I memorized everything. And then I put it all back in the safe, closed it, and covered it with the rug. I went inside, made coffee, sat in Arthur's chair and watched the sun come up. My son was stealing from me. My son and his wife. They'd been stealing for over a year. And Arthur knew. Arthur knew, and he couldn't stop them. Couldn't confront them. Couldn't do anything except gather evidence and hide it and hope I would find it after he was gone. Why didn't he tell me? Why didn't he tell me while he was alive? But I knew why. Because he was protecting me. Because he wanted to handle it himself. Because he thought he had time. And then he ran out of time. I thought about Michael. My baby. My boy. How did he become this? How did he get so lost that he would steal from his own parents? And Vanessa. What had she done to him? What had she turned him into? The phone rang. I looked at the clock. 8 in the morning. It was Michael. Hey Mom, just checking on you. How are you doing? I looked at Arthur's letter on the table, at the note in my pocket, at the evidence hidden in the safe. I'm okay, honey, I said. I'm okay. Good, that's good. Listen, Vanessa and I were thinking maybe we could come by later today. Talk about some things. Nothing urgent. Just planning. Planning what? Planning how to take more. Planning how to get the house. Sure, I said. Come by. I'll make lunch. Thanks, Mom. See you soon. I hung up the phone, sat in Arthur's chair, felt the weight of his letter against my heart. And for the first time in my life, I looked forward to seeing my son with something other than love. I looked forward to seeing the truth. They arrived at noon. I'd spent the morning preparing. Not just food, though. I did make a pot roast, Arthur's favorite, because I needed something familiar to hold on to. I also prepared myself, sat in his chair and practiced keeping my face calm. Practiced smiling when I wanted to scream. Practiced being the woman they expected me to be. The woman who didn't know. When their car pulled into the driveway, I watched from the window. Michael got out first. He looked tired. Dark circles under his eyes. His shoulders slumped in a way I'd never noticed before. My boy was carrying something heavy. I just hadn't seen it. Vanessa got out next. Perfect as always. Hair smooth, clothes pressed, face composed. She looked at the house the way she always looked at it, assessing, measuring, calculating. I opened the door before they could knock. Come in. Come in. Lunch is almost ready. Michael hugged me, tight like at the funeral. But this time I felt something different. Something that made my skin crawl. Was he hugging me out of love or out of guilt? Out of grief or out of fear? I didn't know anymore. That was the worst part. I didn't know my own son. Vanessa kissed my cheek. Air kiss. Barely touching. You look well, Mom. Resting? Resting. I agreed. Come sit down. We ate in the dining room. The good dishes. The ones we only used for holidays. I don't know why I used them. Maybe because I needed things to feel normal. Maybe because some part of me wanted to remind them of what family meant. The pot roast was good. Even I could admit that. Tender meat. Perfect vegetables. Gravy, just the way Arthur liked it. Michael ate like he hadn't eaten in days. Vanessa picked at her food, moving it around her plate. So, Vanessa said eventually, we wanted to talk about some things. I nodded, kept eating. What things? The house, for one. She smiled. That practiced smile. We've been doing some research. The market is really good right now. You could get top dollar for this place. I'm not ready to sell. Of course not. Not now, but eventually. And we want to help you plan for that. Make sure everything goes smoothly. I looked at Michael. He was staring at his plate. Michael, I said, what do you think? He looked up. His eyes were red-rimmed. Mom, I just want what's best for you. We both do. What's best for me? I repeated. Vanessa jumped in. And there are other things too. Financial things. We've been looking at your accounts just to make sure everything's in order. And we notice you've been looking at my accounts just to help, to make sure you're okay. Dad's passing means there are things to handle, beneficiaries to update, paperwork to file. We want to make it easier for you. I set down my fork, very slowly, very carefully. Vanessa, I said, Michael, I need to ask you something. They both looked at me. Michael with something like hope. Vanessa with something like wariness. Did you take money from us? The silence that followed was so complete I could hear my own heartbeat. Michael's face went white, completely white, like all the blood had drained out of him. Vanessa's face didn't change, not a flicker, but something in her eyes shifted, sharpened. What? Michael whispered. Money, I said. From our savings, from the retirement account. Small amounts, over about a year. Did you take it? Michael looked at Vanessa, just for a second. But I saw it. Vanessa laughed. A light laugh, like I'd told a joke. Mom, where is this coming from? Who told you? Arthur told me. Her laugh stopped, just like that, cut off midair. Arthur, she repeated. Arthur. I reached into my pocket and pulled out his letter. Not the note, the longer letter, the one from the safe. I unfolded it slowly, held it up so they could see his handwriting. He left this for me, in a safe I never knew about. He left evidence too. Bank statements, copies of checks, photographs, everything. Michael was shaking his head, back and forth, like he couldn't do this by refusing to believe it. Mom, no mom. It's not what you think, then tell me what it is. My voice was calm, so calm it surprised me. Tell me what it is, Michael. Explain it to me. He opened his mouth, closed it, looked at Vanessa again. She was staring at me now, really staring, like she was seeing me for the first time. How much do you know? She asked. Her voice was different, colder, harder. I know everything. I folded the letter and put it back in my pocket. I know about the withdrawals, the forged signatures, the way you've been stealing from us for over a year. I know you thought you'd get away with it. I know you thought Arthur wouldn't find out. But he did, and he left proof. Vanessa's jaw tightened, just slightly, but I saw it. Michael started crying, quiet tears running down his face. Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It wasn't supposed to. We didn't mean to. Didn't mean to what? I asked. Didn't mean to steal from your father? From me? Didn't mean to betray your own family? It was her idea. His voice cracked. It was all her idea. She said we needed the money. She said you had plenty. She said you wouldn't even notice, Michael. Vanessa's voice was sharp, a warning. He kept going, like he couldn't stop, like the truth was pouring out of him whether he wanted it to or not. We got in trouble. Credit card debt. I lost my job. I didn't tell you. I was too ashamed. And she said you could help. She said we could just borrow it. Paid back before you ever knew. But then it was more and more. And then you forged our signatures. He nodded, sobbing now. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Mom. I looked at Vanessa. She was watching Michael with something like disgust. Like he was weak. Like he'd failed her. You used him. I said to her. You manipulated my son and you used him. She met my eyes. No shame. No guilt. Just cold, hard calculation. Your son. she said slowly, is a grown man. He made his own choices. I didn't force him to do anything. You planned this. Arthur's letter, he said you planned it. You've been after our money since the beginning. Vanessa stood up, pushed her chair back. This conversation is over. It's not over. I stood too, faced her across the table. It's far from over. I have proof. I have a lawyer, Arthur's lawyer. He has the originals of everything. You think you can just walk away from this? For the first time, something flickered in her eyes. Fear, just a flash. Then it was gone. What do you want? She asked. I want the truth. I want to hear you say it. Both of you. Michael was still crying, his face in his hands. Mom, please. Please don't say it, Michael. My voice was hard, harder than I'd ever spoken to him. Say what you did. He looked up at me. His eyes were red, swollen, desperate. We took the money. We stole from you. From Dad. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. And you? I looked at Vanessa. She stared at me for a long moment. Then she smiled. That cold smile I'd seen before but never understood. Fine, she said. Yes, we took the money. Your precious son got us into debt with his stupid business ideas and his inability to keep a job. I just found a way out. A way you'd never miss until Arthur found out. Her smile faded. Until Arthur found out. Yes. He was dying. My husband was dying. And you were stealing from him. He was dying anyway. Her voice was flat, matter of fact. What difference did it make? I felt something rise in me, something hot and terrible, but I pushed it down. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing me lose control. Get out, I said. Vanessa raised an eyebrow. Excuse me? Get out of my house, now. She laughed, actually laughed. This house, the one we'll probably own soon enough. You think you can just get out? Michael stood up, reached for me. Mom, I stepped back, away from his touch. Don't come near me. Don't call me. Don't come back here until I'm ready to talk to you. If I'm ever ready. He looked destroyed, completely destroyed, like I'd ripped out his heart. But I didn't care. Not then. All I could see was Arthur's face, Arthur's handwriting, Arthur's warning. Don't trust them. Vanessa walked to the door, stopped, turned back. You'll regret this, she said quietly. When you're old and alone, with no one to help you, you'll regret this. I looked at her. This woman who had pretended to love my son, who had sat at my table and called me mom, who had stolen from a dying man. Get out, I said again. She left. Michael stood in the dining room for a moment, torn between following her and staying with me. He looked so lost, so broken, so much like the little boy I used to tuck into bed. Mom, please go, Michael. My voice cracked. Just a little. Please, just go. He went. I stood in my dining room, surrounded by the remnants of lunch, and listened to their car drive away. Then I sat down in Arthur's chair, my chair now, I supposed, and I let myself feel it, all of it. The betrayal, the grief, the rage, the heartbreak. My son had stolen from me. My son had helped his wife steal from his dying father. And Arthur had known. Arthur had carried that secret to his grave, trying to protect me, trying to fix it himself. I cried until I couldn't cry anymore. Then I sat in the silence and thought about what came next. Arthur's lawyer, Mr. Peterson, he had the originals. He would know what to do. But first, I needed to sit with this, to let it settle, to decide what kind of person I wanted to be on the other side of this. Because the woman I was before, the trusting wife, the devoted mother, she was gone now. Arthur was gone. And my son was gone too. Not dead, but gone. The boy I raised, the man I thought I knew, he was someone else entirely. Or maybe he'd always been this person, and I just never saw it. I reached into my pocket and touched a letter. Arthur's last words to me: "Be strong. Be careful." I would be strong. I would be careful. And I would survive this. Somehow.
The days after that lunch were the longest of my life. I didn't leave the house, didn't answer the phone, didn't open the door when people knocked. I just sat in Arthur's chair, my chair now, and stared at the walls and thought about everything. Michael called dozens of times. I let it go to voicemail each time. His messages started desperate, then became sad, then eventually just stopped. Vanessa didn't call. Not once. I wasn't surprised. After 3 days, I finally got up, showered, dressed, made myself eat something toast and tea, the same thing Arthur used to make me when I was sick. Then I got in the car and drove to Mr. Peterson's office. He was an old man, older than Arthur even, white hair, kind eyes, hands that shook slightly when he moved. He'd known us for 30 years. He'd helped us buy this house, helped us write our wills, helped us plan for a future that never came. Maggie, he stood when I walked in, took both my hands in his. I'm so sorry about Arthur. He was a good man. He was. I sat down across from his desk. He left me something, told me to come to you, Mr. Peterson nodded slowly, went to a filing cabinet in the corner, pulled out a thick envelope. He came to see me about 2 months before. He passed, Mr. Peterson said, brought me all of this, asked me to keep it safe, said if anything happened to him, I should give it to you when you came asking. When I came asking, I repeated, not right away. When I came asking, that's what he said. Mr. Peterson sat down again, pushed the envelope toward me. He said you'd know when the time was right. I opened the envelope. Inside were the originals of everything I'd found in the safe. Bank statements, photographs, copies of checks, and another letter in Arthur's handwriting, addressed to me. I didn't read it there. I couldn't. Not in front of someone else, Mr. Peterson, I said. What do I do now? He leaned back in his chair, steepled his fingers, looked at me with those kind old eyes. That depends on what you want, Maggie. You have proof of fraud, theft, forgery. You could go to the police, press charges. They'd go to jail, both of them. Jail. My son in jail. What's the other option? He sighed. You could let it go, forgive the debt, cut them off and move on. Some families choose that path. It's not wrong, just different. I thought about Michael's face at that lunch, the way he'd cried, the way he'd looked at me like a little boy who'd been caught doing something bad but didn't quite understand why. He wasn't evil. I knew that. He was weak. He was lost. He'd let Vanessa twist him into something he wasn't, but he'd still done it. He'd still stolen from his father. What would Arthur want? I asked. Mr. Peterson was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Arthur wanted you to be safe. He wanted you to be protected. Beyond that, I think he trusted you to make the right decision. I nodded, stood up, took the envelope. Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Maggie, he stopped me at the door. Whatever you decide, it's the right decision. Because it's yours. Don't let anyone tell you different. I drove home with the envelope on the passenger seat, kept glancing at it like it might explode. In a way, I suppose it could. It had the power to destroy my son's life, to send him to prison, to end his marriage, his future, everything. But it also had the power to set me free. At home, I read Arthur's second letter. My Maggie, if you're reading this, you've talked to Peterson. You know everything. And now you're facing the hardest decision of your life. I wish I could be there to help you make it. I wish I could hold your hand and tell you what to do, but I can't. And maybe that's for the best. Because this decision, it has to be yours alone. Here's what I know. Michael is our son. We raised him. We loved him. We gave him everything we had. And somewhere along the way, he got lost. Maybe it was Vanessa. Maybe it was just life. I don't know. But I know he's not a bad person. Just a weak one. Weak people do bad things. That doesn't make the bad things okay. But it might mean they deserve a chance to become strong. I'm not telling you to forgive him. I'm not telling you to press charges. I'm just telling you to think about who you want to be when this is over. What kind of peace you want to carry. I love you. I trust you. Whatever you decide, I'll be proud of you. Your Arthur cried, of course. I cried for Arthur. I cried for Michael. I cried for the family we used to be, the family that existed before money and lies and Vanessa tore us apart. Then I made a decision. 2 weeks later, I called Michael. He answered on the first ring. Mom? Mom, is that you? Yes, Michael. It's me, oh my God, Mom. I've been so worried. I've been calling, I know. I needed time. Okay, I understand. He was crying. I could hear it in his voice. Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll do anything you want. Just please come over tomorrow, I said. Alone. Just you. Okay, I will. Thank you, Mom. Thank you. I hung up, sat in Arthur's chair, stared at the wall. The next day, Michael came. Alone, like I asked. He looked terrible, thinner, paler, with dark circles under his eyes, like he hadn't slept in weeks. We sat in the living room, me in Arthur's chair, him on the couch, like the night of the funeral. But everything was different now. I met with Arthur's lawyer, I said. I have all the evidence. Everything your father gathered, Michael nodded, stared at his hands. I know. I could go to the police. You and Vanessa could go to prison. He nodded again, swallowed hard. But I'm not going to do that. His head snapped up. What? I'm not going to the police. I'm not pressing charges. He stared at me, confused, hopeful, terrified. Mom, I don't understand. I'm not doing it for you. My voice was firm, calm. I'm doing it for your father, and I'm doing it for me. I don't want to spend the rest of my life visiting my son in prison. I don't want that to be Arthur's legacy. Michael started crying, full on sobbing, like a child. Thank you, Mom. Thank you. I'll pay it back. Every cent. I swear there's more. He stopped, waited. You're going to leave her. What, Vanessa? You're going to leave her. File for divorce. Cut her out of your life completely. Michael's face went through a dozen emotions in seconds. Shock, denial, fear, and then, slowly, something like relief. Mom, I don't know if I can. You can. And you will. Because if you don't, I will go to the police. I will press charges. And I will make sure she goes to prison. Even if you go with her. He looked at me for a long moment. Really looked. Like he was seeing me for the first time. You mean it? He whispered. I mean it, Michael. I've spent my whole life being soft, being trusting, being the woman who smiles and nods and pretends everything's fine. That woman is gone. Your father's death took her. And what you both did finished her off. Mom, here are the terms. I pulled out a piece of paper, handwritten. I'd worked on it for days. You will pay back every dollar you stole, with interest. You will sign over any claim to this house, now and in the future. You will go to counseling for a year minimum, and you will have no contact with Vanessa except through lawyers to finalize the divorce. Michael read the paper. His hands were shaking. If you do all of this, I continued, I will not go to the police. I will not tell anyone what happened. We will find a way to be a family again, somehow, someday. But it will take time, a lot of time. He looked up at me, tears streaming down his face. I'll do it, he said. I'll do all of it. I promise. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to hug him and tell him everything would be okay. But I couldn't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Go home, I said. Start the process. And Michael, yeah, Mom, don't call me again until it's done. Until she's gone. Until you've started making this right. He nodded, stood up, walked to the door. Then he turned back. I really am sorry, Mom. I know that doesn't mean much right now, but I am. I hate myself for what I did, for what I let her do. I didn't answer. I just watched him go. When the door closed behind him, I sat in the silence. Arthur's chair, Arthur's house, Arthur's memory, all around me. I'd done what he asked. I'd been strong. I'd been careful. And I'd made a decision that felt right, not easy, not simple, but right. The money would be repaid. The marriage would end. Michael would have to rebuild himself from the ground up. And maybe, years from now, we would find our way back to each other, or maybe not. Either way, I would be okay. Because Arthur had given me the greatest gift of all, the truth. And with that truth, I had found myself. The woman I am now is not the woman I was. She's stronger, wiser, more careful with her trust, but she still loves. She still hopes. She still believes that people can change, even when change seems impossible. That's not weakness, that's courage, and Arthur would be proud. It's been 2 years now since Arthur passed. 2 years since I found that note in his coat pocket. 2 years since I opened the safe and discovered the truth about my son and his wife. 2 years since I became someone new. I'm still in the same house. The house Arthur and I built together, raised our son in, filled with 43 years of memories. I thought about selling it, especially in those dark days after everything came out. The rooms felt too big, the silence felt too loud. Every corner held a ghost, but I stayed because this is my home, because Arthur is still here, in the walls, in the floorboards, in the garden he planted and the chair he sat in. Leaving would feel like leaving him behind, and I'm not ready for that. Maybe I never will be. Michael kept his word. It took time, more time than I expected, but he did everything I asked. He paid back every dollar with interest. It took most of his savings, all of his $401,000, and a second job he worked for 18 months. But he did it. Every penny. He divorced Vanessa. That was harder. She fought him, threatened him, tried to take everything he had. But the evidence Arthur left, the bank statements, the forged checks, the photographs gave Michael what he needed. In the end, she walked away with nothing, not even a goodbye. I heard she moved out of state, started over somewhere new. I don't know where and I don't care. She took enough from this family. She doesn't get to take any more of my thoughts. Michael started counseling right away. He goes still, once a week. We talk about it sometimes, what he's learning, what he's understanding about himself, about how he got so lost that he could steal from his own father. It wasn't just Vanessa, he told me once. I mean, she pushed, she manipulated, but I made the choices. I signed the papers. I took the money. I have to own that. Hearing him say that, really own it, without excuses, that was the beginning of healing for me. Not forgiveness, not yet, but healing. We see each other now, not as often as we used to, but regularly. Sunday dinners, like the old days. He comes over and I cook and we sit at the table and talk about ordinary things, his job, my garden, the news, the weather. Sometimes we don't talk at all. We just sit, like Arthur and I used to sit, comfortable in the silence. It's not the same. It will never be the same. There's a wound between us that will always leave a scar. But scars aren't weakness. They're proof that we survived. The safe is still there, in Arthur's workshop. Empty now, except for the things I've chosen to put back in it. Arthur's letters, the note from his coat, a few photographs, things I want to keep safe, not from thieves, but from time. Sometimes I go out there and open it, just to touch his handwriting, just to remember, don't trust them. Check the safe. 5 words that changed my life. I think about trust a lot now. What it means, who deserves it, how we give it away so easily, so carelessly, and then wonder why we get hurt. I trusted Vanessa. I trusted her because she was family, because my son loved her, because I wanted to believe the best. That trust was misplaced. But does that mean I was wrong to give it? I don't know. I still don't know. What I do know is that trust isn't something you give once and forget about. It's something you tend, like a garden, something you check on, something that can grow in the right conditions or wither in the wrong ones. I trusted Michael again, not all at once, not easily, but slowly, over time, as he showed me with his actions that he was becoming someone worthy of trust. That's the thing about people. They can change, they can grow, they can become better than they were, but they have to want it. They have to do the work. And the people who love them have to be willing to see it, to acknowledge it, to let them back in when they're ready. I'm not saying everyone deserves a second chance. Some people don't. Some people will take your trust and use it against you, again and again, until there's nothing left. But Michael wasn't one of those people. He was just lost, and he found his way back. Arthur knew that. I think that's why he left me the choice. He could have gone to the police himself. He could have destroyed Michael before he died, but he didn't. He left the decision to me because he trusted me to make the right one. I hope I did. I hope he's proud. I'm 75 now. My hair is grayer, my hands ache more, my steps are slower, but my heart is lighter than it's been in years. I still miss Arthur every day. That never goes away. I'll be doing something ordinary, making coffee, watering plants, sitting on the porch, and I'll think of something I want to tell him. A joke he'd laugh at, a story he'd enjoy, a problem he'd know how to solve, and for a moment, I forget. I reach for the phone. I turn to speak, and then I remember he's not there, but in a way, he is. He's in the garden he planted, blooming every spring. He's in the chair I sit in, worn exactly to his shape. He's in my memory, my heart, my very bones. 43 years doesn't just disappear. Love like that doesn't end. It changes form, but it doesn't end. I talk to him sometimes. When I'm alone, when the house is quiet, when the weight of everything feels heavy, I tell him about Michael, about the garden, about the little things that happen each day. I like to think he hears me. I like to think he's listening somewhere, smiling that crinkly-eyed smile, proud of the woman I've become. To everyone watching this, listening to my voice, I want to leave you with something. Life is hard, harder than we expect most of the time. People will disappoint you. People will hurt you. People you love, people you trust, people you never suspect. They will break your heart in ways you can't imagine. But here's what I've learned. The brokenness doesn't have to be the end. You can survive betrayal. You can survive loss. You can survive the worst things imaginable and still find reasons to get up in the morning, still find moments of joy, still find love in unexpected places. It takes time. It takes work. It takes a willingness to feel the pain instead of running from it. But it's possible, and you don't have to do it alone. There are people who will help you. Friends, neighbors, even strangers who become friends. There are professionals, counselors, lawyers, advisors who know how to guide you through the hard parts. There are communities like this one where people share their stories and remind you that you're not the only one carrying heavy things. Reach out, ask for help, let people in, and when you're ready, forgive, not for them, for yourself. Because holding onto anger and hurt is like carrying a heavy stone everywhere you go. Eventually, you have to set it down. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean trusting again right away. It doesn't mean letting people who hurt you back into your life. It just means letting go of the weight, choosing peace over pain. I forgave Michael, not all at once, not easily, but I did it, and it freed me in ways I didn't expect. I even forgave Vanessa. That was harder. Some days I'm still working on it, but I'm trying because I don't want her to live in my head forever. I don't want to give her that power. If you're going through something hard right now, if you've been betrayed, if you've lost someone, if your family has fallen apart, I want you to know something. You will get through this. It won't be quick. It won't be easy. There will be days when getting out of bed feels impossible, when the pain is so heavy you can barely breathe, but those days will pass, and slowly, gradually, you'll find yourself again. You'll discover strengths you didn't know you had. You'll learn things about yourself that you never would have learned otherwise. You'll become someone new, someone who has been through fire and come out the other side, not unscathed, not unchanged, but still here, still standing, still capable of love and hope and joy. That's what Arthur gave me. Not just the truth, but the chance to become that person, the chance to find out who I was without him, who I could become on my own. I'm still learning, still growing, still figuring it out, day by day, but I'm okay. I'm more than okay. I'm Margaret. I'm Maggie. I'm Arthur's wife, Michael's mother, and now I'm my own person too. And that, I think, is the greatest gift of all. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for sitting with me through the hard parts, the sad parts, the parts where I didn't know if I could go on. Thank you for being here, for caring, for opening your heart to an old woman and her memories. If my story helped you in any way, if it made you feel less alone, if it gave you hope, if it helped you see your own situation more clearly, then sharing it was worth it. Every word. Please take care of yourselves, my friends. Be kind to each other. Be kind to yourselves. And remember, no matter how dark things get, the light is still there. Sometimes you just have to wait for it. I'll be here in this little house, in this quiet town, thinking of you, hoping for you, believing in you. This is Maggie, signing off for now.